The phone rang at 3:17 a.m. I was awake before the sound stopped. Calls at that hour never bring good news. I picked up with shaking hands. The woman said she was from a hospital. She said my daughter was there. She said my daughter was alive. I told her she was wrong. I told her my daughter died years ago. I buried her. I visit her grave. The woman did not argue. She said the patient asked for me by name. She said the patient knew details no stranger should know. She said the patient used my old last name, the one I had before my husband died. I sat on the edge of my bed. I felt cold. I asked how this woman knew me. The nurse said the patient remembered a yellow dress with red strawberries. I felt my breath stop. That dress never appeared in photos, only my daughter knew it. I asked about a birthmark. I described it, a small shape behind the left ear. The nurse paused, then she said yes. My husband had sworn he identified the body. He insisted on a closed casket. My mother-in-law told me not to look. She said it would destroy me. I listened. The nurse told me the room number. She told me to come now. I stood up and almost fell. I did not call anyone. I did not change clothes. I grabbed my keys and left the house. As I drove, one thought would not leave me. If my daughter was alive, then someone else was buried in her place. I drove through empty streets. My hands stayed tight on the wheel. Every red light felt like a threat. My mind kept moving backward instead of forward. My daughter's funeral came back to me in sharp pieces. The closed casket. My husband standing in front of it like a wall. He said he had already seen her. He said I did not need to. I begged him. I screamed. His family held me down with soft voices and hard hands. They told me to remember her smile. They told me not to ruin my last image of her. I listened because I was broken. For 31 years, I believed that box held my child. I visited the grave every week. I talked to the stone. I told her about school, birthdays, and her brothers. I told her I was sorry for surviving. I told her I loved her. Now the nurse's words twisted everything. If my daughter was alive, then the grave was a lie. Someone planned it. Someone signed papers. Someone watched me cry and said nothing. I reached the hospital parking lot. The building stood quiet and bright, like it was awake while the rest of the world slept. I sat in the car and forced myself to breathe. I asked myself one question. If my husband knew the truth, why did he stop me from seeing her face? I walked inside. The hall smelled clean and cold. A nurse led me to the elevator. We did not speak. The doors closed. When they opened on the third floor, I heard something soft. Someone was humming. It was a tune I had made up long ago, a tune I only sang to one child. My legs stopped working. The sound came from room 314. I stood outside the door. The humming continued. My throat closed. No one else knew that song. I made it for my daughter when she could not sleep. A nurse touched my arm and asked if I was okay. I did not answer. I pushed the door open. A woman lay in the bed. She was not a child. She looked about 40. Her hair was darker. Her face was thin, but the shape of her eyes stopped me. She looked at me slowly. Her head tilted the same way my daughter used to tilt it when she was confused. She asked if I was her mother. I could not speak. I stepped closer. I studied her face. The nose was mine. The chin belonged to my husband. Her hands moved the way my daughter's hands moved when she was nervous. A doctor entered and said his name. He said the woman had memory loss from an accident. She arrived without papers. She remembered nothing at first. Then she started remembering things from early childhood. She looked at me again and said she remembered a kitchen with bright walls. She remembered a small dog. She remembered a woman singing to her at night. Those memories belonged to my house. I asked her to turn her head. She did. Behind her left ear was the mark, small, faded, the same shape I kissed every night when she was little. The doctor said they would do a DNA test. I said yes without hesitation. I asked the woman about the accident from her childhood. She shook her head. She said she remembered water. She said someone pulled her out and kept saying sorry. That voice did not belong to my husband. A new fear entered my chest. If someone saved my daughter, someone else helped her disappear. The doctor explained the test would take time. Blood samples were taken from both of us. I watched the needle enter her arm. I felt the sting in my own skin. She asked me my name, I told her. She repeated it slowly, like she was tasting it. She said it felt familiar and heavy at the same time. She told me the names of the people who raised her. She called them kind. She said they told her she was adopted after a car accident. They said her parents were dead. That story matched mine too closely. I asked her how old she was when they took her in. She said 4. My daughter vanished at 3. The math made my stomach twist. I left the room to breathe. My phone vibrated. It was my husband's sister. She asked why the hospital called her. I said nothing and hung up. I walked down the hall and leaned against the wall. My husband's face came back to me. The way he avoided that grave. The way he changed the subject every time I mentioned her. I realized something then. He never said he saw her body. He said he identified her. Those are not the same thing. I went back into the room. She was staring at the ceiling. She asked me one question. Why would someone say I was dead if I was alive? I did not answer. I had no answer yet. The doctor returned and said the results would take 3 days. 3 days felt like a lifetime. As I stood to leave, a nurse whispered something to the doctor. He looked at me with concern. He said someone had called asking about the patient. They did not leave a name. They only said I should stop asking questions. I understood then. The past was not finished with me. I left the hospital before sunrise. The parking lot was empty. My car felt too quiet. My mind kept circling one truth. My husband knew more than he ever told me. On the drive home, I remembered how he changed after the funeral. He stopped talking about her. He avoided the cemetery. When I asked him to come with me, he said he could not handle it. I believed him because grief can break people. Now that excuse sounded thin. I entered the house and went straight to the garage. He spent hours there after her death. He said it helped him think. I never questioned it. I opened boxes I had ignored for years. Old tools, paint cans, broken toys. Nothing made sense until I noticed the back wall. One shelf had been moved. The dust pattern did not match the rest. Behind it was a small metal box. It was locked. My hands shook as I searched for a key. I found it taped under the shelf. That meant he wanted to hide it, but also wanted to find it again. Inside were documents, copies of bank records, large payments made every year after my daughter's death. The dates matched her birthday month. There were photographs. I dropped them on the floor. The pictures showed my daughter at different ages, alive, smiling, standing beside strangers. Each photo was taken from a distance. Someone had been watching her. My husband had been watching her. At the bottom of the box was a folded note. My name was written on it in his handwriting. I did not open it. Not yet. Because if my husband had known she was alive, then the lie was not just about a grave. It was about who helped him keep her gone. I sat on the garage floor with the photos around me. My daughter aged in front of my eyes, different clothes, different homes, same face, same eyes. I forced myself to focus. I checked the documents again. One name appeared many times, a service company. I searched it online. It handled family services and legal paperwork in the late 80s. That did not feel normal. I called the county records office. I asked about car accidents from the year my daughter died. The clerk sounded bored until I gave the date. Her voice changed. She said there were several child deaths that month, all from accidents, all with closed caskets. I asked who processed the death records. She gave me one name. My brother-in-law. My husband's younger brother worked with the coroner back then. He helped families move faster through paperwork. I remembered people saying we were lucky to have him. I was not lucky, I was used. I asked for copies of the reports. I drove there and waited. I read every page in my car. One detail stood out. The number of bodies listed did not match the number of reported deaths. Someone signed off anyway. I drove straight to the cemetery. I stood in front of my daughter's grave. The stone looked small, too small for the weight it carried. I looked around and noticed other graves from the same year. Same style stones, same dates, same closed funerals. A pattern. This was not one lie. This was a system. My phone rang. It was the hospital. The doctor said my daughter had another memory. She remembered a man crying. She remembered him saying her name and apologizing. That voice belonged to family. I turned back to the grave. Someone close to me helped make my daughter disappear. And they made sure I mourned the wrong body. I did not go home. I drove to the care facility where my brother-in-law's wife lived. She was old now. People said her memory was fading. I hoped that was not true. She sat by a window when I arrived. Her hands trembled in her lap. When she saw me, her eyes widened. Fear came before recognition. I said my name. She whispered it back. I asked her about the accident. She shook her head before I finished the question. She told me not to say it out loud. She said, "Walls, listen." I told her my daughter was alive. She started crying. She grabbed my wrist with strength she should not have had. She told me my daughter was never in that car. She said my husband begged her husband for help. She said a judge arranged everything. I asked what kind of judge. She told me he handled family cases. He found families with debt, custody trouble, or legal fear. He offered solutions, money in exchange for silence. Children were taken, deaths were created on paper. My brother-in-law handled the reports. He listed bodies that were never there. He closed caskets before questions could start. I asked why no one stopped it. She said fear stops people faster than chains. She said my husband tried to pull out. The judge threatened him. Names, addresses, schools, my children. I felt sick. She said my daughter was given to another family and paid for like property. She said my husband watched from a distance to be sure she was safe. She said he hated himself every day. A nurse entered the room. The woman went quiet. Her eyes emptied like a switch was flipped. As I stood to leave, she whispered one last thing. The judge is still alive. And he knows you are looking. I left the facility shaking. The truth felt heavier than fear. I sat in my car and wrote the judge's name the woman gave me. I had heard it before. Everyone had. He was respected, untouchable. I went home and opened my husband's note. My name stared back at me like an accusation. Inside, he wrote that he was sorry. He wrote that he did not know how to save all of us. He wrote that the judge controlled the courts, the police, and the paperwork. He wrote that silence was the price of keeping our other children alive. My hands clenched the paper until it tore. I searched the judge's history. Every case involved families in trouble, debt, immigration, custody fights. Children vanished after hearings. Accidents followed. I called the hospital. The nurse said my daughter was resting. The doctor said the DNA results were close. I did not wait. I drove to the courthouse. I stood across the street and watched people enter and leave. The judge arrived with security. He smiled. He waved. He looked like a man with nothing to hide. I felt something shift inside me. I was not scared anymore. I was angry. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. It said I should stop digging. It said accidents still happen. I looked back at the courthouse. If this man could steal children and erase graves, then he could erase me too. I typed one reply. Too late. Then I walked inside. I returned to the hospital just before noon. The hallway felt louder than before. Every sound made me tense. I kept thinking someone would stop me. The doctor met me outside the room. He closed the door behind him. He held a folder in both hands. He said the results were final. He said the match was confirmed. The woman in the bed was my daughter. The words landed slow. I did not cry. I did not move. I nodded like I already knew. I went inside the room. She looked at my face and understood. She sat up and waited. I told her the truth. I told her she was taken. I told her she was never dead. She closed her eyes. She asked who did it. I told her a judge arranged it. I told her my husband helped under threat. I told her someone close to our family signed the papers. She did not scream. She did not panic. She said she always felt stolen from something she could not name. A nurse knocked and said someone was asking about her release plan. The doctor said no one was allowed without family approval. I asked who called. The nurse said the request came from a legal office. The judge's office. I told the doctor to call the police. I told him to lock the record. I told him not to let anyone near her without my consent. That was when the doctor hesitated. He said someone already accessed her file earlier that morning. Someone with court clearance. My daughter looked at me, her face changed. She said the man from her memory had the same voice. The one who said sorry. The same man who took her away. I understood then. The judge was not the top. He was the door. And someone else was already trying to close it. I told the doctor not to leave her alone. I stayed in the room and watched the door. Every footstep in the hall sounded wrong. My daughter asked me what would happen next. I told her the truth. I said people with power do not like exposure. I said we had to be careful. She told me something she had never said before. When she was a child, she remembered a man visiting the house she grew up in. He did not live there. He came rarely. He spoke to her adoptive parents in private. After those visits, they acted afraid. She said the man always wore a suit. She said he smelled clean and sharp. She said he never smiled at her. That matched the man I saw at the courthouse. A nurse came in with a clipboard. She asked routine questions. Her eyes avoided mine. I noticed the badge clipped to her pocket. It was new. When she left, I checked the hallway. Another nurse stood farther down, watching our door. She looked away when I looked back. I called my son and told him to contact federal authorities. I told him to come fast. I told him not to call anyone else. My phone vibrated again. Another message. It said the DNA did not matter. It said papers decide truth. It said mothers lose battles like this every day. I deleted it, but remembered every word. The doctor returned and said hospital security reported an attempted record override. Someone tried to move my daughter to another facility. I said no transfer would happen. The doctor agreed. He locked the chart and changed the access level. That bought time. Not safety. My daughter reached for my hand. She asked me if they could take her again. I looked at the door. I said they would have to go through me first. And I meant it. My son arrived with two men who did not wear uniforms. They showed badges and spoke quietly. Federal agents. I felt relief and fear at the same time. They asked me to repeat everything. I told them about the judge, the records, the graves, and the threats. I gave them the messages from my phone. I gave them my husband's note and the photos. One agent left the room to make calls. The other stayed near the door. My daughter watched them closely. She asked if she was in danger. The agent told her the truth. He said yes, but she was not alone anymore. The doctor returned and said the judge's office had called again. They demanded a transfer order. The agent took the phone and ended the call without explanation. Minutes later, hospital security reported a man in a suit asking for access to the floor. He claimed court authority. The agents moved fast. One stayed with us, the other went out. I heard raised voices in the hallway, then silence. The agent came back and said the man had left. No arrest yet. He said the judge denied sending anyone. That lie confirmed everything. The agent said they were opening a full investigation. They said this was bigger than one child. They said other families might be involved. I looked at my daughter. She was pale but steady. She asked one thing. What happens to the grave? The agent answered before I could. He said the grave would be opened. He said the truth inside it mattered. That thought chilled me. If my daughter was not there, then someone else was. Someone whose family never got answers. As the agent secured the floor, my phone buzzed again. No warning this time. Just a photo. It showed my daughter sleeping in the hospital bed. Taken from inside the building. One stared at the photo until my hands went numb. The angle was close, too close. Whoever took it stood inside the room. The agent took my phone. He did not speak. His face tightened. He asked the doctor for a list of every staff member who entered the room that night. Security locked the floor. Elevators stopped. Doors were guarded. The hospital felt like a trap instead of a shelter. My daughter asked if she was safe. I told her yes, but I did not believe it. The agent returned and said one badge had been used twice without record. It belonged to a temporary nurse. No photo on file. No address that matched. Someone planted her here. Another agent arrived and said a judge's office had contacted hospital administration directly. They demanded cooperation. The hospital refused. That refusal changed things. The agent said the grave order was approved. The cemetery would be sealed by morning. No one would touch it except federal teams. My daughter went quiet. She asked what they might find. I did not answer. A nurse entered with water. This one I recognized. She had been here since the start. She avoided eye contact. Her hands shook. After she left, the agent checked the tray. He poured the water out. He said nothing. I understood then. This was not about silence anymore. This was about control. The agent told me we were being moved to a secure wing. No signs, no public record, only clearance names. As we stood to leave, the lights flickered once. My daughter squeezed my hand. The hallway was empty. At the far end, a door closed slowly. And I knew whoever took that photo was still here. We were moved before sunrise. A different floor. No signs, no windows. 2 agents stayed outside the door at all times. I did not sleep. My daughter slept in short bursts. Every sound woke her. At noon, an agent returned with news. The cemetery was locked down. Federal orders, no press, no staff, only a small forensic team. They were opening the grave. I felt sick. For years, I stood over that spot believing my child was beneath it. Now I wanted the truth and feared it at the same time. The agent said the judge's phone lines were busy. He said several of his associates were unreachable. He said evidence was already disappearing. That meant we were not fast enough. In the afternoon, the doctor came in with a guard. He said my daughter would stay hospitalized longer. He said her name was now flagged under witness protection. Hearing that word made everything real. Witness. Not patient, not survivor. Witness. My phone was returned to me. One message waited. No number, no warning. It said the grave should stay closed. It said some truths ruin more lives than lies. I did not respond. At dusk, the agent came back. His face told me before he spoke. The coffin was not empty. But it did not contain my daughter. Inside was a small body. A child, female, wrong age, wrong height. Wrong identity. Someone else was buried under my daughter's name. Someone else's family was mourning the wrong grave. The agent said the body had signs of trauma that did not match the accident report. The paperwork lied. The death was staged. As he spoke, alarms sounded on the floor. Agents moved fast, doors slammed. The agent grabbed his radio. Someone had just tried to access the hospital system again, using a judge's clearance. And this time they were heading for our wing. The agents rushed into the room. They told us to move now. No explanations, no delay. My daughter stood up too fast and nearly fell. I caught her. An agent opened a back door I had not noticed before. It led to a narrow hallway with no lights. We moved fast. Boots echoed behind us. Someone shouted orders. Radios crackled. At the end of the hall, we entered a stairwell. The door slammed shut. An agent locked it from the inside. He said someone inside the hospital was feeding information out. He said the judge's clearance was fake now, but the system still trusted it. That meant the breach was planned long ago. We went down 4 flights. My legs burned. My daughter stayed quiet. She followed every command without question. At the bottom, a vehicle waited. No markings, engine running. As we got inside, a loud bang hit the stairwell door above us. Someone tried to force it open. The car moved before the doors fully closed. I looked back through the rear window. 2 men burst out of the stairwell. One wore a suit, one wore hospital scrubs. The man in the suit raised his phone and took a photo. The driver turned hard and sped away. The agent in the front seat spoke into his radio. He said the judge was being detained. He said multiple arrests were happening at the same time. I did not celebrate. Power does not disappear quietly. My daughter leaned her head against the seat. She asked me if the other child in the grave would ever be named. I said yes. I promised her that child would be known. The car turned onto a highway. Sirens sounded behind us, then faded. The agent turned and said one thing. The judge is talking. And he is blaming your husband. We were taken to a secure building outside the city. No signs, no windows, just concrete and silence. An agent sat across from me and spoke carefully. He said the judge was cooperating. He said he was trying to save himself. He said my husband's name came up more than once. I felt anger rise, sharp and focused. The judge claimed my husband arranged everything. He said the money, the paperwork, and the silence were my husband's idea. He said the judge only approved what was already decided. That lie did not surprise me. I asked if they believed him. The agent said no. The records showed who had power. The threats came from the court. The payments moved through shell accounts tied to the judge. My husband was not innocent, but he was not the architect. The agent said more graves were being checked. More names were appearing. This was not one child. This was a pattern that lasted years. My daughter was moved to a private room. She asked if her father hated her. That question hurt more than any threat. I told her the truth. I said he loved her but made a terrible choice. I said fear made him weak. I said guilt followed him until the end. She stayed quiet for a long time. Then she said she remembered him crying in a car once. She remembered him telling her to be brave. She remembered him letting go. That memory confirmed everything. Late that night, the agent returned. He said the judge tried to make a deal. He offered names, doctors, clerks, funeral workers. He said one name stood out. A man who worked inside the hospital system. The same man who signed off on tonight's breach. The threat was not over. It was just changing shape. And someone was still trying to erase what we uncovered. The agent returned before dawn. He carried a thin folder. He said the man inside the hospital had been identified. He worked in records, not a doctor, not security, someone invisible, someone trusted. He had helped erase names, he had helped move files, he had helped children disappear. The agent said this man was still free. That meant the danger was close. They moved my daughter again, a different room, a different floor. No chart on the door, no name on the bed. She was no longer listed as a patient. She was evidence. I stayed with her. I did not let her sleep alone. Every time footsteps passed, my body tightened. The agent explained the next step. They would confront the man quietly. If he ran, they would know he was guilty. If he stayed, they would take him in. Either way, they needed time. Time felt like the one thing we did not have. My phone was returned with instructions to keep it on. No messages came. That silence felt worse than threats. My daughter asked what would happen to the child found in the grave. The agent said they were tracing missing child reports from that year. He said a family would soon get answers they never expected. That truth sat heavy between us. Later that morning, alarms did not sound. No shouting, no rush. An agent entered and nodded once. They had him. The records man confessed fast. He said the judge paid him for years. He said he altered files whenever needed. He said he helped place replacement bodies when accidents happened nearby. Replacement bodies. I closed my eyes. The agent said the judge named more people. Judges, doctors, funeral directors. This was not ending today. As he turned to leave, the agent said one final thing. The judge asked to see me. He said he wanted to explain himself. And that explanation could change everything. They took me to a small interview room, no windows, one table, one chair on each side. The judge sat across from me. No robe, no confidence, just an older man with tired eyes. He said my name like we were old friends. He said he wanted me to understand. I told him to speak. He said families like mine were chosen because they were quiet. He said debt, fear, and paperwork made people easy to control. He said my husband was not the first and would not have been the last. He said children were not taken at random. He said they were placed where money and power flowed. He said he believed he was fixing broken lives. I asked him about the child in the grave. He looked away. He said sometimes accidents happen nearby. He said paperwork could turn one tragedy into two solutions. He said bodies were exchanged. Names were reused. I felt sick. I asked him how many. He said he stopped counting years ago. I asked him if he ever felt guilt. He said guilt was useless. He said results mattered more than feelings. That was when I stood up. I told him my daughter lived 31 years believing she was unwanted. I told him another family cried over the wrong grave. I told him his results were built on lies and fear. He did not respond. An agent entered and ended the meeting. As I walked out, the judge spoke once more. He said people like him never truly disappear. He said systems protect their own. He said someone would continue the work. That threat stayed with me. Because as long as power hides behind paper, this was not over. And I knew the next truth would hurt even more. I returned to my daughter's room. She looked at my face and knew something had changed. I sat beside her and told her what the judge said. I did not soften it. She listened without interrupting. Then she asked about the woman who raised her. She asked if that woman knew the truth. She asked if loving her meant stealing her. I told her the truth again. I said the family who raised her paid money, but they were told lies. I said they believed she was abandoned. I said love can exist inside a crime without erasing the crime. That did not make it easier. She said she felt split, one life before, one life after. She said both felt real. She said choosing one felt like killing the other. I told her she did not have to choose. Later that night, an agent brought photos. They showed the other child's family, a mother and father from another town. They lost a daughter the same year, closed casket, same signatures, same judge. Their daughter matched the body found in the grave. That family would wake up soon to the truth. My daughter cried for a child she never knew. She cried because her life came at a cost. I held her until she slept. The agent said the investigation was expanding. Other judges were being questioned. Other graves would open. This story was growing teeth. Before leaving, the agent said one more thing. The judge's phone logs showed calls made after his arrest. One call was placed to a private residence. The address belonged to my former mother-in-law. I felt the ground shift again, because it meant the lie lived inside my own family. And the next confrontation would not involve strangers. I asked to see my mother-in-law immediately. The agents did not argue. They arranged it fast. She arrived calm, too calm. She hugged me like nothing had changed. I did not hug her back. I asked her if she knew my daughter was alive. She did not deny it. She said she helped protect the family. She said she believed silence was safer than truth. She said losing one child was better than losing them all. I asked how long she knew. She said from the night of the accident. She said she helped convince me not to open the casket. She said she prayed I would never learn the truth. I felt hollow. She said the judge contacted her after his arrest. He wanted reassurance. He wanted loyalty. She gave it. That loyalty ended now. The agents recorded everything. She did not resist. She said she was tired of secrets. When she left, my daughter asked if her grandmother loved her. I said yes. But love did not save her. The agents returned later with news. Charges were filed, conspiracy, fraud, child trafficking, evidence stacked deep. The judge would not walk free. That night my daughter stood by the window. She asked me what her name was now. I told her she could choose. She smiled faintly. She said she wanted both names, the one she was born with, the one she survived with. I held her hand and agreed. Outside, sirens echoed in the distance. More arrests. More graves opening. The lie that buried my child was collapsing. But one question remained. Who was the child buried in my daughter's place? And how long had her family waited for the truth? The next morning, the agents confirmed the child in the grave had a name. They found her family by matching hospital records that were never meant to survive. Her parents had waited 31 years. They believed their daughter died in an accident. They stood at the same cemetery I visited every week. Now they knew the truth. I met them later that day. No cameras, no words at first, just people broken by the same lie. I told them everything. I told them I was sorry. They said this was not my fault. Nothing about this felt finished, but something felt real for the first time. The judge was charged. Others followed, doctors, clerks, funeral workers, people who hid behind paper and power. My mother-in-law was arrested quietly. She did not fight it. The system cracked. My daughter was discharged under protection. She walked outside into sunlight without fear for the first time. She stood still and breathed like she was learning how to live again. She chose her full name, both lives, both truths. I went back to the cemetery alone. I stood in front of the empty grave. The stone would be changed, the lie removed. I placed flowers for the child who rested there instead of my daughter. Then I left. Some wounds do not close, they become part of you. But my daughter came home. And the people who buried children with lies will never sleep peacefully again. That is not justice. But it is truth. And truth finally spoke louder than silence. You have reached the end of the text.